The third would be to form a transitional government. We had a transitional government from 2002 to 2005. It stabilized the country because transitional governments have very focused mandates. And one key criterion for a transitional government would be that anybody who serves in major positions in it would not be eligible to run for election. That would end it, because that's the only way to clean up the electoral process and the institutional mechanisms. And fourth is a national government, which means that a political consensus has to be reached that short-term sacrifices are accepted by all political actors in order to get medium to long-term benefits. A national government would be not a national unity government in the model of Kenya or Zimbabwe, because here the goals of delivery to the public have to be very specific. One has to understand that there's a crisis of legitimacy, and regaining legitimacy means a very deliberate process. So temporal orientations to the future, what do? You start from the results that you need to deliver and work towards them. None of these options is a desirable option, but they are the only feasible options. We are not in Afghanistan now in a period to think about desirable. That was 2002, it was missed. It was 2005, it was missed. It was beginning of 2009, it was missed. It's how to rescue something out of a flawed process, not to arrive at a green field and put any design that is desirable. And here, I want to conclude with two observations. First, gaining the trust of the population will require delivery of services with increasing transparency and accountability. This means tackling corruption front and center. Otherwise, the Afghan population has no interest to engage. Afghan population is reverting to habits that it is honed in for 5,000 years. Survival. They want to protect themselves from a predatory insurgency and from a predatory government. So they will change the color of their coats or their flags depending on who controls the village that day. But if one wants to gain them to the side of the government and the international community, then one has to focus on them in their understanding of how legitimacy works. And here it's important to say that the Afghan public still is desirous of a deep engagement with the United States. The United States is still much more popular than the Afghan government. It is not the level of popularity of 2002, which was 96%, but it's still in the 60s. It's not Egypt or the rest of the Arab Middle East. And this type of outcome can be achieved if hard choices are made in a timely manner. Particularly for the government in the United States, it's time to make strategic choices. A strategy is about choice. It is not about desirables. So if hard choices are made and the consequences clearly understood, then I think one can really get progress. But if those hard choices are not made, then conditions would not be conducive to rescuing legitimacy, but on the contrary, diving deeper into a full-blown crisis, which would be both national, regional, and global. This presidency's future in part rests on getting Afghanistan right, as does the future of my people. So I hope that the right choices are made. Thank you.
Ashraf, it's rare that I can say that you over-expected expectations, but you over-accomplished expectations. I thought that was a brilliant presentation and thought-provoking not only for us in the room, but I think it should be thought-provoking for the Obama administration. You closed with a strong statement. This president's future in part rests on getting Afghanistan right. Clearly, the future of your country does. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then I'll turn to the audience for questions as well. The four options you've laid out, would you like to pick one of these? Which one of these do you think is most doable, and how do you do it?
My answer, Fred, is that every single one of them is doable. I'm now not speaking as an actor, but as an analyst. And the question, when I reformed the Russian coal sector in Russia, or advised on China, or advised Nepal, I put options. It's not for me to say which option should be, because that's advocacy. And a lot of those would be seen as me wanting a position in the government, and I've made it very clear I'm not willing to serve. I'm willing to put a framework, because I'm highly controversial, and if I pick the position, they would immediately say, oh, he wants to become the chief executive officer. That's not the way legitimacy is going to be rescued. But the consequence of each can be drawn. Each is a feasible thing. It depends on different resources, different capability. For instance, option 2, creating a parallel international administration, is feasible provided there's a 15 to 20-year commitment to it. Is that politically feasible in Washington? Only Washington can answer that.
Well, let me put it a little bit more provocatively. If the presidency, if the Obama administration is the president's future in part rests on getting Afghanistan right, and if these are the four only feasible options, and if my analysis is right that the Obama administration at this point in its considerations isn't thinking of any one of these four, then ergo the Obama administration is going to get it wrong, and therefore the presidency will go down on the back of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean, the way to rescue that is two of those options. A national government will rescue this presidency in terms of stability. There, the objective would be an agreement, time-bound, over how to restore Afghan sovereignty. In here, it's really interesting. I campaigned in the heartland of the Taliban, and I wasn't killed. Because one of the reasons I wasn't killed was that I was arguing that I was going to shut down Bagram in all detention facilities in Afghanistan, international detention facilities in Afghanistan within 3 years. They loved it. But the interesting part was that nobody said why less than 3 years. That's the realism of the Afghan people. Because to change the Afghan penal institutions to a credible manner is a project that is not going to be achieved in less than 3 years. Afghans understand sequence, but they want to be assured that there is a process that meets their goal. So if a national government were put, it would have these series of objectives. You cannot have 150 objectives. That's a recipe for getting nothing right. I used to teach a course at the World Bank on how to do the right conditionality. And we would start the day, it's a 2-day exercise. With 150 conditions, we'll end up with 5. 5 meaningful conditions are far more significant than 150 meaningless ones. Because the other part will pick the easy ones and then say we've done 60%. So within that, what do we need? You're a brilliant journalist and analyst. Put yourself 10 months from now. If you're back in the journal, what story would you write to say that things were going right in Afghanistan? Or Christina. I would like to get 10 of you together to tell me how you, as very experienced journalists, would judge success and orient the effort in that way. Because that is how you produce success. And the key to that is because you go and interview the Afghan public.